Not the smartest person in the room? Well, I've got some good news. For those of us who often feel we aren't the smartest person in our ministry, we can still be a person of real and lasting influence. Whether it's our kids, our staff, or our circle of friends we want to influence, most of us would like to be able to have a positive effect on these people and influence them for God and for good. Dr. Richard Blackaby recently wrote about being a person of influence, sharing some important points and some examples from the life of his father and my spiritual mentor, Dr. Henry Blackaby. He said, "My father Henry was a shy, introverted Canadian, but God used him to exert enormous influence on others." Dr. Blackaby's book, Experiencing God, has alone had phenomenal impact on lives all over the world. Richard points out that we are often inundated with those who want to influence us on a daily basis. He says, political candidates constantly vie for people's attention. Social media has provided a forum in which anyone can pontificate about their views, regardless of how misguided they may be. People clamor for attention and at times go to great lengths to obtain it. People often make outrageous or eye-catching statements on social media for no other apparent reason than to capture people's attention, just for a few brief moments. People often sought out the godly wisdom Dr. Blackaby shared, and with that wisdom came great influence. I was one among many who asked for guidance from this man who, though shy, and certainly with his flaws, spoke wisdom into the hearts of kings, presidents, and top CEOs, a man of influence. So what does it take to have such an impact? Well, Richard lists these items as key for a person desiring to have godly influence. He says, first of all, have something of value to say. Modern society mistakenly assumes all opinions are equally valuable. This presumption is patently ridiculous. How do you become someone who has something to say? Well, you study, think, prepare. See, too many times people want the prestige of influence without paying the price to earn it. Secondly, Richard says, refrain from speaking when you have nothing of value to contribute. The author of Proverbs sagely declares, even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. When he shuts his lips, he is considered perceptive. And you can read that in Proverbs 17:28. It is humbling to acknowledge that we may never appear more profound than when we say nothing. Third, always tell the truth regardless of how unpopular. Sadly, in today's politically correct climate, people frequently say things that are patently untrue, but politically correct. In corporate America, people are tempted to say what management wants to hear rather than what they need to hear. If you always tell the truth, you may not always be popular, but your opinion will carry weight. Also, be discerning. Influential people have an uncanny sense of timing. Jesus warned his followers to beware of casting pearls before swine. Read that in Matthew 7:6. You see, there's no point in sharing precious truth with someone who will only despise it. Better to wait until the time is ripe and the audience is open. And then Richard says, be Spirit-led. The Apostle Paul exhorted, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, says Paul, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is, and do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. Richard Blackaby concludes his thoughts on being a person of influence with these words. In the confusing, divisive time in which we live, we need God to grant us the maximum influence possible, not for our sake, but for the benefit of the people around us who need to hear God's wisdom. Do you want to make an eternal difference in the lives of those around you? God's wisdom outlasts and outperforms anything man may have to offer from a human perspective. Share His wisdom, and you will find that your life has a greater influence than you ever thought possible. God has allowed this ministry to have influence around the globe. You can find out more about it at MediaAlliance.net. And you can help us influence others by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. Thanks. God's best.